Hey Ratbags, it's Jade today giving you a lowdown on how to get the best one-handed swords in AVOWED. There's a whole bunch of uniques, some are definitely a bit more challenging and one you won't be able to get unless you take a particular path in the story. I'm going to rattle off the names of the swords so you don't have to waste your time watching this video in case you have all of them, but here we go. Last Light of Day, Carnets, Cutless, also going to be picking up the Emperor's Reach, Meteor Blade and Ondras Offence. There is going to be a slight spoiler for the second one that I'm going to be showing really, that affects the story in a major way. But I've put timestamps in so you can skip ahead as well. Let's go. This will be one of the first dungeons that you can complete and a big chunky side story in obviously Dawnshore. You need to head to the Pilgrim's Path to find the dungeon. The quest line for this should be outside the ambassador's office where you'll speak to a soldier that's looking for his brother or some missing explorers. It's a little bit of a winding path as you go up and you will find two NPCs just prattling on along the way. You can pretty much skip them, go inside and yes, you're faced with a large dungeon. This actually got shown off a bunch of times with preview gameplay by Obsidian themselves, so I reckon a lot of you guys have probably come across this already. But it's a long winding dungeon with lots of skeletons, taking on a few shrooms. Eventually you'll come across the missing brother that you've been tasked to look for. And eventually you'll come across this guy, Sogarnis. He is a godlike, trying to basically revive a god being inside a giant statue. You can choose to go ahead and help him with his calls, convince him to sacrifice himself, or go ahead and talk him out of actually doing that. But some of them options will result in you not picking up the sword. In fact, the only way to get the sword is by killing him. Now I assumed that in one choice, when I let him actually live and just walk around the world, that you might come across him again and he may give you the sword as a reward, but it doesn't appear to be the case. There is another quest line that involves an NPC that you can forgive and he definitely will give you a reward, but yeah, not this one. So remember, these swords generally scale depending on what level you are, but they do have a bare minimum and the bare minimum is fine quality. Killing an enemy restores 3% of your maximum health, hits deal 10% bonus fire damage. If you make a run for this pretty early game, it will be challenging with the amount of the skeletons that you face, not to mention a few other more dangerous mini bosses in that dungeon, including a ferocious spider as well as a mage skeleton. But it's definitely worth it, especially for that extra fire damage. And even better, when you go ahead and enchant it, it increases the healing from 3% to 10%, or you can choose a successful parry will deal high stun to the attacking enemy. I personally would go for the 10%, but it's obviously up to you. No way around it, this one's going to be a spoiler for a certain part of the game. It's in Emerald Stairs. I won't let you go ahead and watch. If you don't want to, you can skip ahead to the next timestamp, but you will be missing out on a sword that does extra speed attack damage as well as giving 20% extra damage against humans. I'm going to be vague, but there will still be some slight spoilers. But effectively, yes, once Fjord has maybe had something happen to it, you'll find the survivors in a camp at the abandoned farms, and one of them survivors has got a quest line to go and pick up a ring from a captain. So I'll repeat, you can only pick up this ring and get the reward of the sword if you have gone and found these survivors at the abandoned farms after the events of Fjord. I have done a complete breakdown guide on what to do to stop Fjord from having a big disastrous event, so go and watch that for more details. But effectively, you need to complete the Steel Resolve quest to stop Fjord from basically burning. And you need to do that before you complete the Awakened Soil quest. Otherwise, if you're not that fussed and you like the looks of this sword and you really want to get it, then absolutely pick it up and just go ahead and don't do the Steel Resolve quest and make sure you just go and do the Awakened Soil quest instead. But it will leave you at a slight disadvantage. A couple of the traders will be missing. You won't be able to buy some of the more unique gear, so make sure you do that first from the town of Fjord. There's also a bounty to kill a bunch of Zurips. Although they're not technically in the town of Fjord and it shouldn't affect it, it does because I do believe they literally live in the abandoned farms and so they're moved out when the survivors come here. You do get a quest marker for the Depth of Blood quest, but otherwise it's at the Ranger's Tower, just over to the east of the map. If you come here before completing the Awakened Soil quest, this is how you pick up the Steel Resolve quest, so bear that in mind. You've got to go and find a bunch of missing Rangers and that starts it off. Otherwise, when you come here instead, it's Captain Carnet. This was a pretty challenging fight for me, as I was obviously under-leveled. My advice always remains the same pretty much for a lot of these encounters. Try and take out all the side guards first, in case any of them happen to be any priests or healers. You could actually run up the tower or into the tower and then get a bit of height so that you can maybe escape some of their attacks if you really find it hard, especially if you're more of a ranged character, or just keep simply running around it. But yes, eventually I killed her and then I was able to go ahead and pick up her sword and a ring. Now the ring was actually bugged out and glitched for me. It wouldn't allow me to complete the quest, even though I went back to the same NPC to give it to. I don't know if that's been fixed yet, as I've just not bothered to go check after a couple of updates. But the actual sword itself will be on the body. So this sword is really good for doing lots of damage against human figures. You get 20% damage against Kith, and that's what humans are in the Avowed series or universe. And killing an enemy gives you 15% attack speed for 10 seconds. Enchanting it, that increases it to 30% attack speed for 10 seconds, or you can have a successful parry restores 3% of your maximum health and 3% of your maximum essence. Next up, we're in Shatterscarp. There'll be a sword in a dry lake bed, pretty much embedded in a body. You'll have to take care of a whole ton of Dream Scourge to pick it up, and that sword is the Emperor's Reach. It's pretty close to where you venture into Shatterscarp at the ancient lake bed, pretty much to the southwest near the infected homestead. And that's one of the first quest lines that you pick up as soon as you enter, obviously, Shatterscarp. And obviously with the Fog of War, you'll find it just below the Lizard's picture if you haven't explored that area. The Dream Scourge will be pretty challenging though, as you've probably only just set foot in here, so you may need to still level up a little bit, or this might be actually a good time to try leveling up against them. But once they're all defeated, you should find the sword, as I said, inside a body on the lake bed water. I do believe this is also one of the bounties as well, so you can pick them up from the actual board, as I do think there's another reward you can pick up from another body. So what does it do, the Emperor's Reach? It does 10% attack damage and 10% move speed for 6 seconds when you've killed an enemy. Special attacks will also stun nearby Kith, again humans, so that can be a really good one too. Enchanting it increases the attack damage to 15% and 20% move speed when you kill an enemy, or you can choose a successful parry dealing high stun to an attacking enemy. And last but not least, you will need to have picked up some of that star metal. There's one piece in each one of the zones, and this allows you to go and trade it for some unique weapons in Solace Keep. Of course, this isn't Galawain's task, the 4th zone. You'll need to bring Marius to gain access to the Solace Keep itself, the very first time at least. So I do recommend that you follow the story along, don't maybe rush here, but eventually you'll find a dwarf at the bottom of the keep who sells you some goods, but also will trade in some star metal. You can choose Meteor Strike, or you can choose a unique gun, and I've done a guide to getting all the best guns in Avowed, so make sure you watch that as well. But it's effectively a choice at the first stage. Do you want to pick up the gun, or do you want to pick up the sword? You can get both as long as you've found all the star metal pieces. The gun is a two-handed arquebus, FYI. Otherwise, go obviously for the meteor blade instead. A full combo attack will do 20% less damage from that attacker for 15 seconds. And your hits will deal 10% bonus frost damage. If you enchant it, it increases it to 40% less damage for 15 seconds. Or you could go ahead and choose the parry option, which will deal high stun and high frost accumulation to nearby enemies. Give another piece of star metal to Forge Master Della and you will upgrade the meteor blade to Ondras offence. This will increase the actual damage output of it directly, so it's pretty much like an extra upgrade, and depending what level you've got, so if you've already got a legendary weapon, they should be legendary weapons by the time you pick these up, so it might be worth making sure you upgrade a legendary or get one before you go ahead and hand or try and get this quest, as it will just save you a ton of stuff when it comes to resources. But I was bitterly disappointed. That's all it does. It doesn't increase anything to do with the bonus attacks, nor if you go ahead and enchant it. It's literally the same sword, no extra or different bonuses for upgrading. You'll purely just add in some extra attack to it. So there are 4 pieces of star metal, as I said, 1 in each location. So you will be able to easily upgrade both the sword and the gun, and might as well, why not, since you won't be using them for anything else. So yeah, it's a good maybe weapon or 2 to pick up before you go to the final zone. The gun does move from being Moonstrike to Heaven Strike, and you can see it does a lot of frost damage accumulation to nearby enemies with power attacks, and again extra frost damage with regular hits. So where do you find all the star metal? Well, the first one will be at the Godless Altar, just by the exit to the Emerald Stairs in Dawnshaw. I did go back because I totally missed this somehow, and it will be on the altar here. So just head to the southeast of Fjord. The next one's where you fight an ogre in a waterfall or cave. It's kind of an entranceway that you can go through an old abandoned house. I think it's called Damp Burrow, and you should find it in a small area. The ground will have this purple on it as well. So that's the location in the Emerald Stairs, all the way over to the northeast. Next we're heading to Shatterscarp. Head to this location for the waypoint, is the easiest way. There's a small trader outside, and there is also a resting place for you, just pretty much beyond where Thirdborn town is. Straight across you can see these cliffs, head towards the side of them, and you should find a small little tunnel that'll take you through to the abandoned mines. This one's probably the hardest and easiest to miss in terms of just pure location, as it requires a bit of parkour and maybe jumping on things that you wouldn't necessarily think to, but you should know it's the cave as it's got a fossil right next to it. And you do get guided here by one of the missions. Anywho, clamber through and climb up through the area on top of the constructs. Jump across and make your way through this little gap and then get right on top of the cliffs effectively. And instead of turning left to talk to the NPC you'll find in there, actually turn right, move along this cliff face, and instead of jumping up here, as there might be a little bit of loot but it's not actually what we're after, take a leap across and jump on top of these rocks and follow the cliff edge along. And literally just sitting there in the middle of nowhere pretty much is the third piece of star metal. And hands down the toughest in terms of combat is all the way in, obviously Gallowayne's Tusk, just south of where it says Ash Forest, all the way over to the west. You'll find the fourth and final piece obviously inside the meteor pit. There will be some enemies nearby to deal with, and especially look out when you go ahead and grab the fragment. You'll get this ridiculously OP Revenant enemy appear, and yeah, good luck facing them, as it's a legendary, or it was at least for me. And there you go, you pretty much have fire and ice in terms of swords, not daggers, if you do go and pick up this weapon, alongside obviously the last light of day. So yeah, really good elemental combo if that's what you're after. If you did find this video useful, please leave a like, and I'll see you right back for more of my weapon guides and more location stuff soon. Bye bye.